Good morning. I'm going to ride my still very new bicycle over the street, and it is early morning. The sun is not up yet, but I am going over the street today to the park, and so I'll be passing through some busy areas probably. And today is a day in which I want to address the issue of playfulness, and so my way of playing is embodied language, and embodied language is tapping into our playfulness. Yeah, and what is embodied language? Embodied language is the way of talking in which we listen to ourselves, in which we are not too concerned about what we say, in the sense that we usually are, because we usually are very fixated on what we say, and we don't pay much attention, if we pay any attention at all, to how we say it. But in embodied language, we are tuned into ourselves, so to speak, and therefore we experience what we say in a different way. And that is how we play. And so our humor is a form of self-humor, which is not the same as the usual humor that we know, which isn't playful at all, which is very, you could say predetermined, very deliberate and very calculated, and therefore also contrived. And it is usually having to do with laughing about others, not laughing about ourselves. And you could also say that the usual humor is based on the lack of comfort that is preventing us from being playful. Yeah, because if you feel threatened, if you feel on guard, you are not very playful. You cannot be playful. And so playfulness and well-being and comfort and safety, it all goes together. And so humor also then takes on a different form, I wouldn't call actually the humor that we know with our usual way of talking, which I call disembodied language. Yeah, I don't laugh about it. I cannot laugh about the fact that people are trying to be funny because they feel uncomfortable. That's basically what most people laugh about, and they start to joke and to make fun, to supposedly break the ice, but they are actually feeling uncomfortable. And this is such an important topic, because playfulness makes us feel comfortable also. Yeah, if we could be more playful, now that would really go so far in creating with our playfulness a whole different reality. And so this is also why I love to continue to have embodied language. And in embodied language, yes, I talk with myself. I play with my language. I allow myself to say what I want to say, and I also let my language reveal what it can reveal if I let it, if I don't force it, if I don't predetermine it. And so this is something of utmost importance. It's always something important what I say. But this is another aspect which behaviorists and behaviorologists have addressed quite prominently, because there is, of course, in terms of our behavior and in terms of any kind of behavior, regardless of whether it is playful behavior or other kind of behavior, there is, of course, an argument to be made, or not an argument to be made. It is that's also such a weird expression. No, it is important. It is necessary to understand, as I was just saying, that there is a particular environment in which we can be playful, in which we will be playful. Yeah. So there is what they say in behaviorism or in behaviorology. There is a contingency that sets the stage for, having fun, for feeling humor. Yeah, having humor and just being free to speak not your mind, but to speak what you want to say, to be playful. And so all of this is related. And it's in disembodied language in which we do not listen to ourselves, there is no playfulness. There cannot be any playfulness. So in embodied language in which we begin to listen to ourselves, we create and we maintain the contingency for playfulness. And that is so fascinating. And there's more to it, because how do we create that contingency? How do we maintain that contingency? Well, we primarily create it by the fact that we enjoy creating it. So we like to hear ourselves. We like to know what we could say if we would listen to ourselves. And that's such a wonderful phenomenon, that we are curious, that we are exploring, and that we are playing with our language, because that is self-reinforcing, by the way. And so that is an aspect of reinforcement which deals with with reinforcement a little different than the usual way in which we are inclined, if we know anything about reinforcement at all. The usual way people are inclined to understand reinforcement is, of course, that reinforcement happens after a response has occurred, because of the reinforcement of a response. Yeah, there's a positive outcome of some sort, praise, or I don't know, you get a prize, or you feel happy. Yeah, so there is the outcome of a response, the result, the consequence of a response, which changes the biology, which changes the neural behavior of an organism. Yeah, it changes the ability to respond to a similar future situation in which that same neural behavior is triggered, and then that behavior is more likely, is more probable in the future. Yeah. So it's not so much that that particular response is going to necessarily repeat itself, but there is, of course, this future probability issue of your playfulness, which increases as you feel the positive outcome of your embodied language. Let me put it that way. So there is the self-reinforcing aspect of embodied language, which has to do with the fact that, okay, you just enjoy having it. Yeah, you just enjoy listening to yourself and talking with yourself and playing with your words. You just say what you want to say. You just enjoy. I kind of feel that when I talk like this, I feel like I almost adopt a sense of who I am, which anyone who has heard me more often is probably able to recognize. That is a sense of youthfulness, a sense of presence, joyfulness. It's very beautiful. It makes me feel as if, for lack of a better word, it makes me feel young. I know that I look old with my beard, but it makes me feel youthful, it makes me feel young, it makes me feel alive. Let me put it that way. That is what it is. It is a very subtle sense of aliveness, of joy. Joy also, that's a beautiful word. And so you really enjoy that playfulness. And yeah, and of course, you know, this has nothing to do with, I don't know, the insistence on that people sometimes have, the insistence to be safe, the insistence to be accepted, the insistence to be to not feel threatened. Now, all of that is all good, but to get to our playfulness, yeah, we can only get to that if we are truly safe with our language, with our words, with the way we deal with our language. And so as long as we were trying to get other people to accept us or to understand us or to provide us, to facilitate that comfort to us, we were actually not really having it. Because there is in our language, in our embodied language, there is this possibility of providing this for ourselves. And that's exactly what I'm doing. That is why I feel so excited, so proud, and so I enjoy my ride. You know, I enjoy where I am. I enjoy the morning. You know, it's another beautiful morning, and I'm riding my bicycle, which is still new. It is, yeah, and I am just enjoying everything that I say. Yeah. So again, there is the contingency of playfulness, the contingency of humor, the contingency of embodied language, which is actually the same. The contingency of independence, yeah, independence, which is not what we used to believe it is with our disembodied language. Because when you do not listen to yourself, you consider independence to be something which it is not. Then independence appears to be a way of being separate. And in embodied language, independence actually means that you're totally connected. and you can totally connect because there is no threat. You feel completely at ease with your language, and the lack of threat is actually the absence of disembodied language. That is another way of putting it. And so everything is put together completely different in embodied language. Yes. Oh, my bicycle is riding really nicely. Oh, I'm so glad to have this new bicycle. Here I go, crossing the street. This bicycle, it truly makes me feel like that I have acquired a piece of myself or something. Isn't that something? That bicycle belongs to me, it's part of me. Yeah, it is. It is my bicycle. And the other bicycle, that was Bonnie's bicycle, my wife's bicycle. It was fun to ride it, but I'd rather have this one. I gotta stop here because traffic light is red. What a beautiful day. Okay, here I go. It's busy here. Okay. So as I was saying, there is in embodied language the issue of self-reinforcement, which creates the contingency for playfulness. And then of course there would also be the reinforcement, the social reinforcement, if we would have embodied language together. We would be laughing together about ourselves. And our humor would be a self-humor, and of course also we would also be laughing about all the tragedy that goes on in the name of disembodied language. The tragedy, the madness, the craziness, the foolishness, the utter nonsense that goes on. I was just watching a little bit of news before I left. My wife was watching some news, and I just saw that they were discussing how it's now going to be in the courts that these boys who claim to be girls, these boys, they are bigger, they're taller, they're stronger, they're faster. I mean, come on. And these girls, there was this girls team, some basketball team, I believe, and they refused to compete with these transgendered boys because they're going to lose and it's unfair, and they just want to compete with girls, not with boys pretending to be girls. So, and there were of course some religious school, and they objected on religious ground, but they were excluded from the competition because they didn't want to compete with boys who pretend to be girls, right? And you're not even allowed to say this anymore. Anyway, this is now they have to fight this on religious grounds. Can you freaking believe that? They have to fight on religious grounds that it is insane for boys pretending to be girls to be competing with girls, to be in the girls' locker room. It is just bizarre that we cannot figure it out. But why can we not figure it out? Well, we cannot figure it out because we are continuously determined by, involved in, carried away by, obsessed with, because we're obsessed with that, with disembodied language. That's the reality. And so our disembodied language gives us a concept like intersectionality. Have you ever heard of that term? Intersectionality. Intersectionality, that is how race and ethnicity and gender and whatnot, class and everything that minorities and whatnot, how that all converges on situations in social environments due to which certain groups are discriminated, are oppressed, are not getting enough attention. And now we are dealing with the oppressed and the victims, yes? And then we are justifying basically racism because we are race baiting, we are saying, oh no, we're being discriminated. No, you're not being discriminated, you're being race baited. Now that's a good joke, isn't it? But that's how it is, that's the Al Sharptons of this world. Al Sharpton, the race baiting referent. And the Maxine Waters and the Ocasio-Cortezes and they're endlessly race baiting. And then you get diversity, equity and inclusion, the whole movement that has now been debunked by the Trump administration, because this cannot go on, this madness, because it is basically a war on white people. It is. And so all of this goes on in the name of intersectionality. But no, it's not intersectionality. And intersectionality is really very insidious. I don't know if you've noticed, but it goes together. All these transgenders and all the LGBTQ people and all the diversity, equity and inclusion and the critical race theory people. All of that, what I just mentioned, all of that goes hand in hand with supporting Hamas. Believe it or not, being in favor of the people of Palestine, these wonderful people who hate the Jews, who want to wipe out Israel. Oh yeah, and for sure they are allowed to do this. And then what you get also is this what they call intersectionality. Yeah, remember that word, it's an important word, where intersectionality now also, of course, it includes also, you're not allowed to criticize Islam, because if you criticize Islam, you're an Islamophobe. Yeah, that's what's right. And so the Islam is allowed to also wiggle its way politically into this whole issue of intersectionality. And then you get people supporting Hamas being anti-American, and now you get also with the murder of the CEO. Did you hear about that? The CEO of this, what is it, of this medical company or whatever. Yeah, these people, the public opinion is about this CEO, that these people, these medical people or whatever, insurance or whatever, I do not know exactly, I haven't really looked into it much. But you know, that, they're being ripped off by the, I don't know, the people who do medicine or who do insurance, whatever. And they and so presumably this guy who killed this CEO, supposedly he was some sort of a hero because, he did the right thing. Supposedly, no, he did not. He murdered an innocent person in cold blood. And we are now seeing on the left again the intersectionality very insidiously. On the left, you see an increase of, you could say, justification for this murder. And when we are considering also the murder or the attempted murder on Donald Trump, the 2 murder attempts on his life, the left is increasingly ramping up the rhetoric to kill Trump. And it is just astonishing how much hatred there is and how they keep fanning the flames in the name of intersectionality, as if it is all related. We keep endlessly saying things like, oh no, it is the rich who are getting richer, and endlessly, so it is endlessly playing the victim card of the poor, of the oppressed. And we are bunching all of this together. You know, in behaviorism, we have a term for this, You can call it many different things. You can call it a pairing of stimuli, which is classical conditioning, Pavlovian reaction, and that's exactly what you see in the left. Constant reactivity. Pavlovian reaction, by the way, which relates to respondent behavior, which is basically the response of our autonomic nervous system, which is responding to a threat, which may of course also be a perceived threat. All of this is part of behaviorism, folks. And then of course there's operant conditioning, where behaviors are reinforced due to social interaction. Well, guess what? All these people talking with each other, hating together, and feeling united in their hate for Trump, feeling united in their hate for people on the right, demonizing everybody as if they're Nazis. It's just such total freaking nonsense. But it all goes on in the name of disembodied language. More of the same disembodied language than we already had. And even more aggressive, more insidious, more violent, more deceitful, more lying, more chaotic, more aggressive, more... it just keeps on escalating. That's what disembodied language does. The total freaking opposite of anything that is enjoyable, that is playful, that is fun. Let me just go back to that again. I mean, do you hear what I'm talking about? I hear it. So we create that contingency for embodied language ourselves by listening to ourselves. And unless we do that, that contingency is not going to be created. And we can only create that contingency socially if we mutually reinforce each other's embodied language. Yes. Now that would be something if we would do that. We haven't done that. And since we haven't done that, there is no embodied language to be found anywhere. Yeah, so everybody is at each other's throat with their disembodied language, but there's no embodied language anywhere. Isn't that nice? This is the 1 mile area where people go and swim in the summertime. So good morning. Isn't that something? I feel, all of a sudden surrounded by these trees here, and I just almost naturally fall into some sort of a silence just because I'm here. So yeah, intersectionality, as I was saying, is kind of like the total opposite of play. Yeah. And play, of course, can also go on quietly. Play can also go on you're just doing what you're doing, and yeah, when parents have children and when they're quietly playing, everybody's peaceful, right? They're just playing. that feeling. Yeah. Nobody's making any noise, no arguing, no fighting. No fighting over toys. And it's funny, in a sense, you could say that the fight to be right, when we are having this big argument and discussion about who's right in the conversation, we're all trying to get the attention of each other. We're trying to win the argument. We're trying to dominate each other. To dominate the conversation. We're trying to force our ideas on each other. But all of this also happens in absence of playfulness. Because if we are playing, we are having fun. Yeah? If we're playing, we are satisfying ourselves. We are stimulating ourselves. We are engaged in self-reinforcing activities. We like what we do. Yeah. And when we're playing together, we both like what we do. Yeah? Isn't that something? And that's what happens when we would have embodied language together. Wow. Yeah. I feel like I want to walk a little bit. hear that? I'm just gonna get on my bicycle again because I don't want to be close to that. I mean, these are homeless people and they're sitting there in the park with the music blasting. It's just unbelievable. But that's what they do. Yeah. Okay, here I go and walk again. Look at that sun coming through the trees like that. They are busy here in this park. I can see that a bunch of trees have fallen, and they're here you can see they're sawing down or chopping them up in pieces so that the road is not blocked. Yeah. Yeah. As a kid, my play was I like to play mostly alone. and although I tried to play with other kids, I did play with other kids, and we played all kinds of things, as kids. But I often felt that that my play was different than the play from other kids. And I was often not allowed to play with other kids also. And because my play was too wild or something, or too, I don't know. I did many mischievous things. Yeah, I did. And yeah, crazy things also. I could have really hurt myself. I could have also hurt other people, I guess. Yeah, it's true. Did dangerous things, climbing on high places and balancing on the edge, stuff like that, hanging on the roof and stuff like that, or big climbing into big cranes on building sites, and climbing on the scaffolding, stuff like that. I was just like a little monkey. But yeah, my way of playing was of course already different when I was a kid, because somehow, I guess, I'm a product of of my environment. Now, of my parents, of course. And my father, he was, he's. I believe he's still. I believe he's still a little bit alive, but he's in a senior home, permanent care, and he's at the end of his life. And he hardly does anything anymore. He's just waiting for his end. That's what I heard my brother, or not heard my brother say. He wrote that to me in an email. And yeah, that's how my father's life will come to an end. But my father was a rascal also in his own way, in his own way. And even though he was a very domineering man and abusive and authoritarian and causing me a lot of heartache. I caused him heartache, but he also caused me heartache too. But it's funny how my father could also sometimes really laugh about himself. And how he could also just see the humor of things, like how ridiculous it is that people are the way they are. And my father, he could just really laugh very loud. that everybody just felt like that's too loud. It's one of the better qualities of my dad, that he could laugh. And if I became, you could say, if I became who I became because of him, it was also in part because he told us as a kid already, he told us stories from his youth, which were all kind of really obnoxious. And one of his stories was that that this is one of my father's stories. That there was some sort of a schoolmaster, and he was this schoolmaster, and he had this thermo bottle to have a warm drink in it, and that was kind of like at a time when I believe maybe that was kind of like when people for the first time were having such bottles or something like that. That was something really special. And anyway, they had that thermo bottle in his bag or something, and they I don't know what they did with that bag. I believe they threw it on the ground or something happened, and the bottle got broken. And, I don't know. I kind of forgot the real stretch of the story, but I remember that he told us that story and that he was punished for it. And I don't know, but he had defied authority basically, by breaking that bottle. and at another occasion, this is something I clearly remember. That was a story. Wow, that must have been such a. I mean, talking about playfulness here, but they had some sort of a statue of Maria or something, and a statue of Jesus on the cupboard in the classroom, and apparently they had pulled a line or something and somebody walked into the teacher walked into that line, and the statue toppled or something like that. I don't know how they did it, but that was another one where a statue, a religious statue, was crashed to the ground. I mean, can you freaking believe that? That was in my father's young years, when he was still a Catholic, and my father was really a fanatic Catholic, and yet he had done that. So in a sense, my father, he didn't really realize how defiant he himself was, and how in need of playfulness he himself was. And if he ever was able to satisfy his own need for playfulness. It must have been in his old age. Yeah. It was only much later that he started to practice guitar, and he got himself a guitar. I remember he got me a guitar when I was very young, and it was a really good guitar also, a Spanish guitar, but I didn't play it. I didn't want to play it. I was ashamed to play it. I was put on guitar lessons, and I didn't want to study. I felt like it was all forced, and it felt like I couldn't do it. And besides, I was in those days still biting my nails, and I was a very nervous kid, and I was biting my nails, and I was biting my nails until they were bleeding. Horrible times. For me as a kid, I was just so stressed and so upset all the time. And it had very much to do with my dad. But as I was saying, going back again to his playfulness, it's a paradox, because on the one hand, he could be very funny, and yeah. I'm just gonna sit here for a little bit. So, yeah. Yeah. My talk about play makes me feel compassionate to my father, and I remember also one time. This is another thing about my dad. One time we had a Christmas tree. When we would have a Christmas tree, my dad and we would just go and get one and carry it home, And but after Christmas was over, we would get rid of that Christmas tree, right? My dad, can you believe that? My dad, he would just take the Christmas tree to a little field that was in our neighborhood, and he would pour gasoline on the Christmas tree and set the thing on fire. But I mean, what kind of father does that? He did that. And not that I was not a pyromaniac or anything like that, but I always like a good fire, Oh gosh. And my father, he liked the campfire also. I know he does. I believe when I was still a Boy Scout, I believe he was also part of one of our events when he was sitting near the campfire. And he sort of glorified his own days of being in the army, which was also sort of for him some kind of Boy Scout thing. Yeah, my father, he served in the Dutch military army, yeah, as a young man. And it's also interesting how he then had stories about his time that he was serving, and he was in a town in the south of Holland, Maastricht, and later I came to live in that town, and I remember when I was living in that town, I was walking in my dad's footsteps, so to speak. Yeah. But no, this whole conversation about playfulness, it reminds me of my father's playfulness, and how my father had appreciation also for art, and he had an appreciation for beauty, and I feel like I have that for my dad, yeah. And a sense of humor, that we can laugh about things. Although my dad, I was as a kid very stressed and neurotic, you could say. I was having asthmatic bronchitis, and I was constantly having a running nose and congested and having breathing problems literally. And but being outside and playing outside, this was probably also part of why I was always such an outside kid. Playing outside, I was nowhere to be found. I was never to be found to do any chores. I always escaped. Didn't want to do the dishes. Yeah. But in any case, that also had to do with my if I was indoors, I was asthmatic. And it went on till my teens. In my teens, I sort of recovered from it. And it's so nice to talk about my sense of playfulness and to now make that connection between my playfulness and my compassion for my dad, for his authoritarian ways. In my dad, I now recognize actually in him a strong righteousness, where he wanted things to be a certain way that he felt it was right, and I have to admit, that there were plenty of moments also where things were right. In spite of the fact that he was very forceful and that he was very, also kind of paradoxical and it's just inconsistent and confusing. Yeah. What a wonderful discovery today, and that I can talk about playfulness in this way. And again also playfulness being the discovery of something new also. Playfulness being the exploration of what is possible, all that, and knowing yourself. Isn't that something? And without all of that, we are just stuck. Hello. So nice to see the sun shining through the trees like that. I love that sight like that. Oh, it smells so good. We have in our garden, we have a ceanothus, and the ceanothus, this smells like ceanothus to me, but it is the blossom from the trees that I smell here. No, this is not ceanothus, this is the blossom from the trees. Wonderful. Morning. I kind of now all of a sudden realized, like, okay, should I stop making this recording, and that kind of reminds me of experiences in my past, that as a child I always wanted to keep on playing. I always wanted to remain outside. I didn't want to come in. And I believe this is something that many people can relate to, you know, like, yeah, oh, you want to keep on playing. No, you have to go home. You have to, I don't know, eat or something like that. You have to go back again. The play is over. Playtime is over. Now, for me, playtime was always over too soon. I was just getting started, and I want to play some more. Yeah. So this is also, yeah, my coming to terms with being the person who I really am, you know, like I am this playful person. I it's not just that I can be this person. Of course, everybody can be that person if you allow yourself to be that person, if the situation allows you to be that person, yeah. But as I was saying before, you know, and this is really so important, because embodied language, it doesn't occur if you do not listen to yourself, if you do not begin to speak with yourself in order to listen to yourself. So it is never going to come to you by somebody else. Your embodied language is never going to come to you because of somebody else. And as long as you continue to believe, falsely believe, I should say, as long as you continue to falsely believe that what you believe to be embodied language is going to happen because somebody else is going to listen to you, somebody else is going to be kind to you, somebody else is going to accept you or be nice to you, you are not going to have what I call embodied language. Because embodied language doesn't work that way. Yeah? It has nothing to do in that sense with what others do for you. It is what you do for yourself. And once we do for ourselves together, yeah, we are playing together. But we have never done that with our language. That's why there is no shared embodied language. Yeah? We only can share our embodied language to the extent that we have already played with ourselves, so to speak. Yeah? And yeah, another way of saying that is we can only play together if we are able to play by ourselves, with ourselves, and with our language, and listen to ourselves, talk with ourselves, recognize like, oh, yeah, this is my embodied language. This is when I have fun by myself. This is what I enjoy to do. And there's no pressure whatsoever. Yeah? Any kind of pressure, any kind of tension, any kind of distraction, any kind of frustration, any kind of negativity is completely absent. You just enjoy. And it doesn't have to be anything that you have predetermined. So it can just morning. It can just be what it is as it emerges, as you play. You will find out what it is as you were talking. That is so beautiful. Yeah. The beautiful creek. I said in one of my previous videos on which I was reading one of my writings, I addressed the importance of having to also put up a bit of a fight, yeah, when it comes to holding your conditioning history with disembodied language at bay. You know, when it comes to stopping your tendency to always do what you always do, to always say what you always say, you have to put energy into your own language by saying to yourself, no, I don't do that anymore. I'm not going to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. yeah. And you gotta sort of just let yourself know, like, okay, that is something that I have already said, and that sounds boring. I don't want to say it again. And if I hear myself say it again, I'm just going to tell myself, no, that is not anything I want to hear. It's not anything I'm interested in. It's not anything that I find amusing. It's just more of the same disembodied language. And lo and behold, if you do that, and of course it's not a fight, it's actually just acknowledging what's going on, because it's really going on that you're always repeating the same. But when you do that, when you really say all that, look how pretty. That is so fresh. The water is so fresh. Oh man, it's such a gorgeous day to ride my bicycle here and to not be so cold as I was before. Whoops. Hello. Yeah, it's really important to deliberately speak about your disembodied language. Let me put it that way. That's probably a better way to put it. Yeah. So not so much that you're fighting with your disembodied language. No, you just let it be what it is. And you are just being as dreadful as you can be. You're just being as aggressive or as stupid as you can be. And you hear it. You say, oh my God, this is what it sounds like, yeah. And you can repeat it, or you can listen back to it, and you can say, like, no, that was definitely my disembodied language. Are you done with it now? Is it over now? Why continue with something you hate? And then there's also, of course, this other side to this, because yeah, once you know what you hate, once you know what you don't like, yeah, it's never too late to hate. That's one of my sayings. It's never too late to hate. And that's just a playful way of saying that you gotta hate disembodied language to get rid of it, you know. And you gotta hate it with a vengeance. You gotta hate it joyfully. Yeah. And that makes total sense, right? Yeah. All right. Well, I believe this ride is almost coming to an end, because I'm now here hitting the sunny part, and I believe that is where I'm gonna leave it for today, unless there's still something that I still want to say and play. Yeah. Oh yeah. Of course, I also like to play on my instrument, and I got recorders, and I got a ukulele, and I like to sing also. That's also part of my play too. Isn't that wonderful? And to me, riding my bicycle is play too, you know. Yeah. Aimlessly riding my bicycle. I like that. I just go places. Wow, look at these big trees that they cut down here. Those are huge. They took them away. They first they fell down, and then they sawed them in pieces, and now they're gone. They were here for many years, and then they're gone. And one day I will also be gone. And yeah, you could say that's the cosmic play of life and death, right? The tree grows and dies, and a human being also lives and dies. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.